Climbers, for all intents and purposes, it's true. Terrestrial radio is dead. I'm about to prove it to you. But like with any crisis, there's danger and opportunity. In this case, the opportunity is for the indie artist like you. Today, we're going to unpack a recent Bob Lefsetz's blog entitled The Death of Radio, which tackles the phenomenon of Oliver Anthony and rich men north of Richmond. You're going to want to stick around and listen to this. There's so much going on in this article. Welcome to the Climb! This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business, because leverage is what you're going to need. Gosh, we are so going to make the point of this in today's episode. But it's all about leverage. You want to work with the right people in the industry to get your career going, then leverage is what you're going to need. It's not so much the talent. I mean, you're going to have talent to be a good artist, but you're going to have leverage to get anybody to know about it in the industry. That's why we call it the Climb. C.L.I.M.B. Creating leverage in the music business. How many times can I say leverage? Say it again. Leverage. Leverage. So that is a Baxternym created by my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter, who also happens to be a hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols, and more. He's got songs right now as we speak, climbing up the charts on Southern Gospel, right?
That's right.
What I love about Brent is he helps songwriters like you turn pro, helps you figure it out by revealing how you write like a pro, do business like a pro, and then on the regular, he connects you with the pros, gives you the opportunity to create a relationship. And I'm here to tell you, relationships have been and continue to be created. So this is real. This isn't selling hope. It's real. If you've got the goods, he's going to put you in front of the people that can help you with that. You can find Brent very easily at songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. Yeah, it's complicated, but Johnny is smart. If you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production singular, no S, and there is no S because there is no other Johnny D.
Dude, Oliver Anthony.
Yes.
Wow.
That's a whole situation right there, isn't it?
Yeah. For so many things on so many levels, right?
He's been talked about on a whole lot of different kind of podcasts this week for many different reasons, right?
Yeah, and we're not going to talk about the political stuff. Like, what we're going to talk about is business stuff. And,
yeah, that's right.
So, I want you to rest assured that that's what's going on here. But, man, we have been validated times 1,000 with Bob Lefsetz now and Billboard magazine now echoing everything we've been saying for the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, once again, we're right.
Here we go. Hate to see it.
Oh, yeah.
You think it would get old. It doesn't get old.
It doesn't get old. Like, no. It is hard work being this right all the time. I'm telling you.
I can say that because it's mainly you being right. So I'm just, yes, that's right. I'm so smart listening to you.
You're right, too. I'm just right when it comes to the music business. You're right when it comes to songwriting business.
There we go.
So, which is a fact which is proven by I'm continually surprised by the amount of major industry songwriters and publishers that listen to our podcast. I was just like, what?
Love that.
Yeah, totally dig it. So anyway, before we get into that, let's get into some business. Join the Climb community if you haven't done so on Facebook. It's just facebook.com/groups/the Climb community. You have to ask to be let in. We let everybody in so long as you don't look like a bot. Okay. Mm-hmm. If your account looks like if you just now crawled out from under a rock and got on Facebook last week and your first order of business was to join the Climb,
you're going to need to message one of us to let us know.
You're going to need to message us to let us know you're legit. Otherwise, right. I'm calling no. I'm saying this is a bot you're going to come on and try to sell us carpeting or siding or something like that. and I'm not going to allow it. But everybody else, you get let in until you do something stupid, and then you get roadhoused out. Because make no mistake, we care about our community. I don't know why we keep saying this, because I feel like the people that we roadhouse out clearly have just never listened to the podcast.
Yeah,
They
this
don't
is
because they
really,
listen to the podcast. They just find a group and they come in and
blasphemy.
join it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if
Um,
you're listening to this, you're not the problem.
Yeah, that's right. But hey,
We
listen, we
appreciate
want to
you.
hear about, like, this is a place where you can get supported by all
Mhm,
of the community and Brent and myself. So, but the feed's for everybody. The feed's
mhm,
not for you to do any advertising for yourself. The feed is for, like, share news, share comedy, share, anything that's like music oriented that makes sense to this audience that can help them.
mhm,
Turn them on to it. But we want to hear about your music. We just want to hear that as a comment on a post on Mondays. We want to hear about your gigs. We want to hear that as a comment on a post on Thursday. And we want to hear about your wins, because we share those on the podcast. That's every Wednesday with the new Heights section.
mhm.
Comment there. And Brent, what we got?
All right, so more wins than we can cover on here, which is a win in and of itself. So we're gonna pop it off a couple of these. Let's see, Laura Principato. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Laura. Celebrated a standing ovation for singing a Jimmy Buffett song as a tribute over Labor Day weekend, and I specifically wanted to share Laura's because, man, I hate that Jimmy Buffett has left us. I'm a
I know.
I'm an aspiring parrot head. I never got to see him in concert, but dadgum, I've worn his box set out and several albums out. And so God bless Jimmy Buffett. Thank you for all the good
You're an
things.
inspiring pair. Yeah. Thank you for the music. I just posted, I don't know if I put it in the climb community. I'll have to check, but I posted something that he was just spitting truth. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I shared that on my Instagram
did
too.
okay, so it's so good, right? Like,
Yeah.
about the music business, about being an artist, about not sucking, and so good. And the establishment, like, they went
Mm,
offline years ago, and made more money. I mean, this dude is he was a really smart dude. He was a good human
mhm.
being, and the world is a better place for because he was in it. So
Yep.
yeah, God bless you, Jimmy Buffett, man.
So, all right. Another win is by climber and songwriting pro member Randy Maynor. Had a Labor Day release by Daniel Ball, a song called Stranger in the Pew. It topped off yesterday at the time of this, he posted it at number 13 on iTunes. So,
Nice.
good job. Randy wrote that with my other buddy, Jordan Burks, who's another Arkansas fan like me. And the three of us write some. I'm not on that song, but I remember hearing that because it came through a songwriting pro event, a publisher event. And I was like, I like that song. And it made it to the event. That's not what got it cut, that it got cut through their angle. But I was like, I've liked that song for a couple years now. So it's good to
Yeah.
see it get its due. And I like to say it validates my A&R ears for these things.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
aha,
right.
I knew it was good. I knew it was good.
See, I was right.
Feels like a
There's a
win
lot
for
of that
me.
going on today. There's a
It
lot of
feels
that
like
going on today.
Yeah, it feels like a win for me because I'm like my A&R is, chops are validated, and
And
also
we
I'm
both
happy for
take
my friends.
extreme pleasure and you know, uh, pride in our community succeeding, no
Yeah.
matter how it happens. You know what I mean? It's like when something good happens, we love it. That's why we're talking about the win. So shout out to Randy Maynard. Good job, buddy.
Yep. Let's see here. Carrie Cunningham, climber, says just signed an exclusive contract for my song Eggnog. Had an amazing single release party in Oregon and a fantastic time playing for the 100th year celebration of the Ellensburg, Ellensburg Rodeo. So congrats, Carrie, on the song agreement and on your current release. And awesome, you can go
Good
find
job,
Carrie
Terry.
Cunningham. Go find her. She does good
She's
work.
a good human too. She's a good human.
Yeah,
You know,
I
and
like.
that
I've
girl's
known her for a
everywhere, man.
while.
She's everywhere.
She works,
She's
man. I've
in
known
Europe.
her
She's in
for a
Nashville.
while.
She's in Oregon. She's in California, and she's playing all these places. Like, she's she's like, I don't know how to
She ain't
describe her.
playing.
She's a force of freaking nature, man.
Yeah.
For sure.
Let's see this.
So
A new one, real quick. Aaron Baldes, I guess is how you say your name, Baldez, maybe. But over Labor Day weekend, went to Ten Sleep, Wyoming. I just want to read this because it's a town in Wyoming called Ten Sleep. I don't know, but that's cool. To participate in the Wyoming singer songwriter competition, made it to the semifinals, but that isn't what I'm celebrating. It was a 3-day festival with Bighorn Mountain. So many dedicated songwriters from the state. We had so many sweet jams and workshops reminded me of how good it can feel to play with other musicians, which I haven't really done since before COVID. So he wants to also celebrate. He got to co-write with another songwriter there. So that's cool, man. That's a win, Aaron, just to sometimes just go, oh yeah, this is why I love music. Jamming with people and the good, sweet vibes. So love that. So congrats all y'all. Keep on climbing.
There you go. And hey, don't forget to come to Nashville or come out if you're in Nashville on Monday,
Oh,
October 23rd,
that's
for the
right.
first ever Climb Show Writers Night Takeover.
That's
We've
right.
got a super lineup of hit songwriters that have been on the show and
Mhm.
climbers that have, just have risen above the din, if you will, and are going to be in there. So it's going to be a fun night. There's going to be a lot of industry people there. Come
Mhm.
and hang out. Come and make some relationships with other songwriters, with publishers, with Brent and I. And it's all about relationships, man. It's all about the hang. And this is a great place to make that happen. So we
That's
hope to
right.
see you out there. It'll be at Live Oak, by the way, which is on Demumbrian Hill there, just right
Mhm.
Demumbrian right off of I-65.
Yep,
And
from 6 to 11 on it's a Monday night, and our rounds start they have a live band from 6 to 7, then our rounds start at 7 and go to 11, and I'm stoked for it. We got a couple spots left we're gonna fill up, but man, what we have so far, it's a crew. It's gonna be a
so, by the
vibe, it's
way,
gonna be
I mean,
fun.
if since we're not booking the band from 6 to 7, why do we keep saying it's from 6 to 11? I don't
Well, just
understand that.
because 'cause I'm gonna plan to be there early, so that's gonna be my chance to shake hands once it gets rolling. I don't know how, like, much I'm gonna be around to, you know, hang with people. I
Oh,
imagine us to be visiting a lot. So that's it for me because like get there early because I'm gonna get there early so I can
okay.
do a
I
little
thought there
more.
was something. I'm like, it keeps confusing me. I'm like, do we have to book that band? Like, what?
No, no, we do
What,
not book that
what
band.
happens in the 6 o'clock hour? Because I feel unaware.
Yes, live band
I'm
from 6 to 7 has we don't book them. I'm sure they'll be great, but I'm gonna try
nervous.
and get there early so I can see friendly faces and hobnob and all that good stuff.
Right on. Well, okay, let's get into this. We got a lot to cover.
Yes, let's
A
do it.
lot to cover. So, Bob Lefsetz, we have been talking about him for the entirety of the length of this podcast for the
Yeah.
last 7 years. He's a guru. If you don't subscribe to his blog, you should. It's lefsetz.com, lefsetz.com. He's also got an incredible podcast where you can have your favorite stars and really incredible business people are sort of long form interviewed. It's an hour long, and lots of great stories, great insight. I have just gained so much from listening to that podcast, not the least of which is completely ripping off the chain smokers release strategy, on how they do that, which was told by their manager Adam Alpert, who's interviewed on the podcast. So it's and he's super knowledgeable about the music industry and also about tech. I don't agree with his politics so much, but so I don't really chime in or listen in on those interviews. But really,
Mhm.
it's mostly business and music business stuff. And he's just really sharp, and he's a great writer, and he's on point. So to me, reading this came out about a week ago, I guess, or a week and a half ago, and I just was like, oh my god, this is finally now he's saying it right. And
Yeah.
so here we go. We're going to get into this, and we're going to kind of unpack this as we go along. But starts out by saying, all you have to know is Richmond, north of Richmond, went to number one on the streaming chart, which is a bit complicated because there's on demand streaming and radio style streaming and YouTube and dot, dot, dot. But if you make it to number one thing's for sure, people are listening. And it's all about consumption, right? I'm going to repeat that. It's all about
Mhm.
consumption. And therefore, guys, I'm adding this, whomever owns the traffic rules the road because
That's right.
it's the traffic that is consuming. Okay. So he says, can we forget about the good old days? With fat label contracts and prodigious CD sales, they're never coming back, ever.
Mm.
And we can forget about sales altogether. The iTunes store is de minimis, a fraction of what it once was. And that's de minimis is a 50-cent word for too trivial or minor to merit consideration. Okay.
Ooh.
20 years have passed since iTunes' inception. To talk about iTunes consumption today is like talking about 78 consumption after the introduction of the 45.
Huh.
It's over. As for physical sales, that's souvenirs. It's not about listening. Travis Scott, he's number one this week because of a cheap vinyl offer. In other words, his residence atop the chart is manipulated. Unlike Morgan Wallen, who's number two on the chart this week, based on consumption, not sales.
Mm.
Ignore sales. They're a metric the labels use to manipulate the chart. But streaming, you only get paid when people listen. The pre-internet generation hates this. They'd rather sell you the album, get their bucks, and forget you. But this is incredibly short-sighted. Let's just stop right here for a second and talk about that.
Yeah.
That line, they'd rather sell you the album, get their bucks, and forget you. That's the way it
Oh.
always worked because that's the way it had to work back in the
Mhm.
day. You couldn't sell direct to consumers, so you sold to distributors. And the labels never knew who the customer was.
They couldn't
Okay.
forget you, and they never knew you.
They never knew you. Right. And it was just impossible to know that. And Hollywood was the same way, right? You made
Mhm.
movies, you sold the movies through distribution. And when it did well at the movie theaters, you got more money, but you knew who the distributors were and maybe the big people at the large movie theater uh, chains, but you don't know who's bought the ticket. You don't know who liked
Mm.
it, who didn't like it, because you couldn't. But now Hollywood certainly knows, don't they?
Yeah, they
But the
do.
labels don't. They still don't know. It's almost 2024, y'all. And they might be the last friggin' industry on the dang planet that doesn't have an email list of all of their customers. Like
Yeah.
it's insane that this is a fact, but it is a fact. And why am I saying all this stuff, guys? Because I want you to you got to be careful what you ask God for. You got to be careful who you're going to work with. Some of you guys are really talented
Mhm.
and you're going to start to get a lot of attention, and you need to make sure that the attention that you're getting from somebody that might be your hero in the industry or somebody that I would have given my left arm to work with 30 years ago is how are they going to approach it now?
Yeah.
Because it's become an increasingly huge problem that we're going to, spell out even more in this blog and with my comments here. But he says that what you want to do is create something so infectious that it will continue to be consumed and you'll get paid handsomely. Um, Now, in the pre-internet era, the way you sold was via radio and then music videos on MTV when MTV came out.
Mhm.
People saw the product or heard the product on radio and they went out and bought it. So, in other words, radio and MTV were promotional tools.
Yeah.
Radio's business is advertising. Stations don't care about the music. They'd air anything if enough people listened and they could sell advertising.
That's right.
So, music and radio, Lefsetz says, is a marriage of convenience, but the marriage is on the rocks.
Mhm.
I'm going to say that again. The marriage is on the rocks,
People aren't getting
right?
their needs met?
Exactly. No. And a marriage of convenience, y'all, that was what was convenient about it. Well, radio used to be, prior to the invention of television back in the 50s, news content, sports content, dramatic content, and comedic content.
Mhm.
There wasn't a whole lot of music on there. There was music, but it was way more of that.
Yeah.
Think MTV and CMT now. We've got all these shows over here, and then for a couple hours a day, we play some music.
Right,
Um,
yeah.
that's what it was like. And then all of a sudden, when TV came in, all of the dramatic and comedic content like left to go to a bigger platform on
Mhm.
TV, and radio's like, what do we do now? And by that time, the
We
record labels had
need
stopped.
content.
Exactly. We need content. And now it's like 25 years after the labels have been fighting them like literally banning artists from going on the radio, thinking that if you can hear the artist sing their music on the radio for free, you get the milk for free, you're not going to buy the cow. But,
Mhm.
they were wrong about that again, right? That's
Again,
where it
right.
started. so, so the marriage is on the rocks. He says that yesterday you used radio exposure to sell product. Today, when it works, you're selling streams. Sure, there's publishing money on airplay in the US, but the record company doesn't get paid a penny. And the majors no longer own all the publishing, or they have admin deals on the hits at a very low rate.
Mhm.
So the labels need to focus on streaming to make money to pay their bills, right? They can't sustain on publishing.
Yeah.
Now, online radio, meaning streaming or online radio streams or satellite radio, pays both the record company and the publisher, right? Satellite
Mhm.
radio, which is selling subscriptions, not ads, they pay both the record company and the publisher. So it's not just the writers; the artist gets paid for it too. But the real money for the labels is in direct consumption. People choosing to listen to a certain track and streaming it. That's it. To think otherwise is to deny the present. Okay. So, consumption, guys, we work with this amazing company that for Spotify playlist promotion. This company owns boatloads of Spotify playlists that have boatloads of traffic. In fact,
Mhm.
they're in lots of different genres, but when it comes to country, they've cornered the market on country. Their only competition is Sony. Okay.
Yeah.
The guys that own this have two revenue streams. Okay. Because they own the traffic. They own the traffic. They own the traffic. Okay. One revenue stream, companies like me pay them money to place my artist songs in their playlists because they get streams. And that helps us with the algorithm on Spotify. And it's part of the on ramp to Spotify editorial playlists where there's money to be made. Okay.
Mhm.
What's the other revenue stream? They pay people to create recordings of cover songs because they own the masters.
So they own the playlist. They go out, pay somebody like work for hire, go do this cover song of this popular song. We'll pop it on the playlist, and then we own the master, so we get paid like the label and the artist does
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Spotify on our own playlist.
On their own play. So literally he pays like $1,000 a song, but it's a flat rate work for hire thing. They work it all up, almost always like all in the box. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? They try to make them sound like the original as much as they can, use different singers, but then the company owns the master. He's getting 1 million streams a month per song on his masters. Makes $3,200 a month on a
Hmm.
song when it gets 1 million streams. Times, I think they got 40 or 50 songs out there now. They own the traffic. Okay.
Man.
This is, be thinking about this. Okay.
Mhm.
So, um, to say that it's not about the traffic, right? To not to really believe it's still about radio is to deny the present. However, he says the major labels are lost in this new era and keep pouring money into radio. They keep pouring money into radio. I know this is a fact because
Mhm.
the pain that I get called into to record label meetings for now is that they want to take a new artist to radio that they just signed, but radio won't even look at them, even though they're a label, because there's not enough traffic on digital to have them even consider putting a song into the playlist. Remember when radio used to tell people what was good?
All right. Yeah.
Remember that? Remember those days?
Mhm.
Now it's not true. You have to be good enough to get on the radio, people, even if you're a record label. So what happens? They're in pain. They're like, Johnny, can you help us out? Yeah, here's what you're gonna have to spend. We can't do that. Okay. And I'm not talking about my fee. I'm talking about like ads. You know, you're going to have
Mhm.
to go hardcore on digital ads to get enough traffic and enough results on digital so that when you spend 300 grand to put this artist out on radio tour to try to get on a playlist, they'll even listen to you, right? But they're not, they keep pouring money into radio. Now, if you're an
Okay,
artist on a
I got it.
label, go ahead.
I got what this analogy is. Okay, so it's like, oh, we want to, spend some money on this little digital crap to make us more attractive to the radio because that's where it is, the radio. Okay, what that is, that's a plot from a 1980s rom-com where the girl, like the guy wants to make the prom queen like jealous of him, so she's into him. So to make himself look more attractive, he's going to find this little, this girl that's a little mousy, not a, very attractive, nobody, and he's going to gussy her up and fake like they're dating so that therefore he looks more attractive to the prom queen. But then he figures out he don't really like the prom queen because that girl was it the whole time. Either that or some plot for like Taming of the Shrew or something. But like in the 80s rom com, that's what it is. Digital is that little mousy girl that the guy that wants to be popular with the prom queen isn't paying
Right.
much attention to, but she's where it's at the whole time.
That's so good. What was, I know the movie you're talking about. I'm trying to remember the name of it. She's All
Is it like
That, right?
he's all that, or I think there's a Patrick Dempsey one, maybe that Can't Buy Me Love or something, where he's some, I don't
Can't Buy Me
know.
Love. Yes, Can't Buy Me Love. That was it. I love Patrick. Those old Patrick Dempsey movies are great. Those rom-coms are
Yes,
good.
back before he was McSteamy or whatever. So
He's just one of those guys. Everything he does, I like what he does. You know,
yeah.
he's just cool. But yeah, you're right. That's a really good point. Like they can't let it go. Now, here's the deal. Here's what you need to understand. This is human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the people that are pulling the levers in the record industry right now, at the top of the major labels, with all the power and all the relationships and everything like that, they are there for a reason. They're all there for the same reason because they have important relationships in radio and they
Mm-hmm.
understand radio. And, half of them are also hit songwriters
Mm-hmm.
whose whole, now just think about this in terms of reality. Their whole revenue stream, their whole life has come directly from radio as a hit songwriter, and then indirectly from radio as a paycheck from a record label that makes their money on radio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's their identity.
Yeah.
I'm a hit songwriter. I got 10 number ones. I got 20 number ones. I'm also working at this record label. How can you? No human wants to look in the mirror and just be like, well, it's all over. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's their identity, it's their legacy, it's everything that makes them important to other people. It's how they add value to society. And when all of a sudden that method of, because I'm not saying this to make them sound like egotistical, right? But I mean, imagine that you're a preacher at a church and you're beloved at your church, and then all of a sudden there's some sweeping law that says you can't have churches anymore.
Oh, that happened during the pandemic, but whatever.
Well, yeah.
That's another
Well, how
thing.
do you
Yeah.
add value? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like what you do. This is how you help people, and all of a sudden you
Yeah.
can't do it. And everything that you've done for your whole life, that whole body of work now just doesn't mean anything anymore.
Mm.
It's called being Y2K'd. It doesn't feel good. And not only will people avoid it, they'll do anything to stop it from being disrupted,
Yeah.
you know? So you guys, you have to understand this, okay? Like they aren't, it's not going to be the labels that come around and figure this out. If a label had, and a major label had an epiphany and was like, you know what? We need to switch over to digital right now. This is what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Blah, blah, blah. Well, that guy has to answer to the board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 week later, he's going to be called into the board of directors with his job on the line. And they're going to say, how in the hell did you go from being a beloved leader for the last 20 years of our record label to having a mutiny and everybody wants your head? Because they all have mortgages, they all have kids. that are going to college. They all have car payments, and all of a sudden they're looking at the demise of their existence and their way of making money because we're going to switch over to something different and not radio. They can't do it. They won't do it. Okay. So, why does this matter to you? Because, man, if you get a deal at a record label, you need to be asking a lot of questions before you sign those papers.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to promote me? Because they're going to run out of money trying to promote you on the radio. Your runway is going to go to nothing. And you're going to now be stuck with a contract on a label that they may or may not let you out of after they've decided to shelve you.
Yeah.
I know plenty of artists who just like literally had to scrounge up $100,000 to try to get out of their record deal because the label just wouldn't let them go because they're too busy making money with other artists that are working for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's or something stupid like somebody in the band pissed off somebody in the legal department. So you know what? F you.
Yeah.
You get out of this yourself, but we're not going to help you. I mean, it's just the bottom line is you're not in power, and now you can't do anything, and it was all because you took the candy on the shelf and you thought it was like you tried to go for the prom queen, Brent, as you said, and you weren't paying attention to the little mousy girl with the glasses, and she doesn't wear clothing great, but you put her in that hot dress, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa.
But
Hey.
actually, what it is not the prom queen. It's like 2 years ago, prom queen.
Yeah.
The prom queen
Exactly.
2 years ago.
Exactly. So, the major labels are lost in this new era and they keep pouring money into radio. And just like advertisers overpay for spots on network TV, listenership and viewership on network TV are way down. But radio and TV are the best way to reach mass, however tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that again. Radio and TV are the best way to reach mass, however tiny.
Sorry, does this playlist make my mass look big? No.
Yeah.
But it's, let me know what you mean by that. I'm confused.
Well, I mean, it's such a dichotomy, right? However tiny the mass is. I mean,
Right.
a third rate, when Seinfeld went off the air, the last episode of Seinfeld, which is the largest TV audience in the decade of the 90s, it was a huge, like just what he's talking about here, overhyped media advertising extravaganza. Everybody was scrambling to pay the most amount of money to put a commercial on that half-hour episode.
Mm-hmm.
And the audience was big for the 90s. But what nobody understands is that, and this is 1998, by the way. So this is, it's almost 20 years ago, right? No, it's almost 30 years ago. Good
Yeah.
Lord. The size of the Seinfeld audience on the last episode paled in comparison to the size of a network audience on a third rate, bottom of the barrel, about to be canceled sitcom in 1979 when there was only 3 channels.
And less people in the country.
And less people in the country. So you're talking about like if you don't get 100 million viewers, you're going to get canceled on network TV from the 50s through the end of the 70s through the cable TV hookup. And, one of the biggest hits that we've had in the last 20 years is The Walking Dead. And that was an audience of 5 million people.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's 5 million people though, but it ain't 100 million. It ain't like it used to be. You know what I mean? So here's what he says. He says, we've noticed for over a decade that terrestrial radio is moribund. It goes on records after they've become established hits on lines. Moribund, 50-cent word. Here's what the synonyms are. At the point of death, at death's door, on one's deathbed, near death, breathing one's last breath.
So speaking of The Walking Dead.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Bob Lessage just said that. But he said, never have we had a track like Rich Men North of Richmond, which went to #1 and stayed there based solely on streams with radio not even playing the track.
Mm-hmm.
Rich Men North of Richmond is nowhere to be found on the media-based country chart, y'all. And it's not on the top 40 chart either. So, uh, uh, that's mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
So he says, sure, maybe both of these formats will ultimately go on the Oliver Anthony track, but I must ask, who are these passive terrestrial radio listeners who need to hear it on the radio to then consume?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They aren't. And as I stated above, this is all about consumption. Terrestrial radio pays no recording royalties. They only pay copyright royalties. None.
Good for the songwriter, not great for the artist or the label.
Right. And so, when I was telling you about the playlist company before creating, um, uh, because they have traffic, creating the cover songs, they don't own the copyright.
Correct.
They're solely making money on the master
Mm-hmm.
because they own the master. Okay. And it's not as much as the artists make, but when you're getting 1 million streams a month on your playlist, when you can do that for a song, you can make money. I mean, first month he's cash flow positive by $2,200.
Nice.
I mean, it's insane, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, you know, you can make money owning the masters, right? And I can tell you that building your catalog on Spotify matters even at a small level, right? My artist Mackenzie O'Brien can get the same amount of streams on her release as my other artist Josh Roy, but Mackenzie gets when we're promoting that, they get the same amount of streams on the song that we're promoting, but Mackenzie gets a higher popularity score on Spotify. Why? Because she's been releasing stuff since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh's catalog isn't that big yet, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's all about consumption. Terrestrial radio pays no recording royalties, and that's why radio is still the label's number one focus. The labels own the masters, and they
Yeah.
don't make money on the publishing. Like you see how this doesn't make sense,
No,
right?
on any level. Except for
On
the
any
ego
level,
level of the old school, hey, we got number one at radio, or yeah.
yeah. And so far, Oliver Anthony has refused to make a deal. He's been
Mm-hmm.
offered him. I promise you that, a bunch of them. He says, Chance the Rapper made it without a record deal, but that's hip hop with a long history of free mixtapes. But country, a supposedly controlled market, all beholden to radio?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're entering the second revolutionary age. The first started with the internet and Napster. The second starts with the death of traditional exposure outlets.
Hmm.
It's not only radio, but television. A late night appearance means nothing.
Yeah.
SNL and CBS's Sunday Morning can move the needle, but no other show has this power. And by the way, the moving the needle power of SNL and CBS's Sunday Morning significantly less than what it was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking Beatles on Ed Sullivan to,
Yeah, you're talking like a spot on SNL was coveted and could seriously help break a band.
yeah.
You know, so that was a big deal. So the labels find the talent online after it established success with a fan base. Here's another way to say that, after they get leverage.
Yes. It's like in the words of Shark Tank. Hey, what are your sales like? You want me to invest?
Yeah,
What are your sales like? Show us you're
exactly.
doing it.
It's a
Proof of
Shark Tank,
concept.
dude. You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're totally right, And so he says, the labels find the talent online after the talent establishes success with a fan base, and then the major label exploits said music. ...
Mm-hmm.
Exactly how?
Yeah.
That's what you need to be asking. Exactly how are you going to exploit my music? How are you going to make me more popular? How are you going to help me expand my audience. Exactly how are you going to do it? And the first person at the table that says, hey, we've been doing this for a long time, kid, don't you worry about, get up and walk out.
Mm-hmm.
Get up and walk out. You need to know. You need to know that they know, because the odds are right now they don't know. All right. And he's saying, look, Bob goes on to say, I'm not saying the major labels are going out of business. There's no way, because they control almost all of the recorded music history. It's in their vaults.
Yeah.
But new music? Question mark. This is you, indie artists. This is you, the new music. Okay. He said, this is why we have so many successful genres of music today. It used to be, if it wasn't on the radio, it was marginal. If it wasn't on MTV, it was marginal. But now you don't even need a label to sell tickets. And there's more
Mhm.
money in tickets than recordings anyway.
Yeah.
Tickets are expensive and shows bond your audience to you. Live is efficient in a way that radio never was. But how do you get found online? Well, if you're trying to work it, your only hope is to have a profile in the genre in which you participate. The other players and the audience must be aware of you.
Mm-hmm.
Starting from absolute scratch is nearly impossible. I disagree with this statement. I just think it hasn't been really done yet on a
Yeah.
repetitive level, which is exactly what Daredevil's working on, right?
Mm-hmm.
By building that repeatable, reliable pipeline for breaking an artist, and which has to do with exposure and creating that in the way that it needs to be created to get people turned on to an artist on a digital platform as opposed to radio, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
As is worldwide domination, which he says is nearly impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So the majors still control the top 40, but it means less than it ever has in its history, being a top 40 artist. The majors fight for slots in the Spotify top 50, but some of those acts are one-hit wonders. Furthermore, and this led me down a rabbit hole, okay? As detailed by Billboard, the majors can't even break a new act anymore. That's going to be my next episode. I found the article.
Yeah.
I've been saying it forever, right? Because because radio doesn't break artists anymore. Therefore, the labels can't break artists anymore. Because what do they know? Radio.
Radio.
What won't they try? Anything but radio.
Mm-hmm.
Because then all of a sudden, if it works, everybody's out of a job. We don't need you.
Right.
Because we found something that works. We don't need radio anymore. So all of a sudden, there goes the radio promo department. Got their pink slip.
Mm-hmm.
Half the people running the company. Here you go. Thank you. Thank you for your time. We don't need you anymore. You think they're going to do that? Think they're going to compete? Is it human nature to say, well, golly gee, maybe this new crazy, social media thing, we should figure that out instead of complaining about it and try to adapt and try to become a student of the game. They won't do it. They're going to get rid of it. They're going to try to keep it out of the building for as long as they can. You know where you saw this happen? Uber and the taxi cabs. When Uber first came out, Yellow Taxi was by far worldwide the number one most recognized brand name for getting a lift somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
If they would have just went and spent the money that they had to create an app and try to compete with Uber, they would have been way better off than they were now. But they spent 10 times the money it would have taken them to go up the learning curve and create that app on trying to do what? Eliminate Uber. Eliminate the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that work for them, by the way? When was the last time you got in a cab? Yeah. Holy crap. The majors can't even break an act anymore. Acts come from the bottom up, not the top down. The bottom up is the internet. The top down is manipulation and aforesaid radio and TV. And if this were working, we'd have new breakout stars, but we don't. We don't. And you know what? you can make an argument that there's a couple artists who have kind of broken like that lately, but all of a sudden now, I'll tell you that that argument, as true as it may be, they're the outliers.
Mm-hmm.
They're the lottery winners. Go back on Wikipedia and picture and just Google like the top, the all the debut records from artists that were released in any given year in the 70s and the 80s or the 90s, and you will be astonished at how many brand names and you don't even listen to that genre.
Yeah.
That's how many artists got enough attention and a big enough brand name that you don't even listen to this or that, but you know who they are. You've heard that name before. You're familiar with it. Wow, wow, wow. Right? So yeah, we don't have breakout stars. Now here's another one. Hear me, people. Hear me, climbers. As for dead tree publicity, as
You mean
in like
paper,
using
print?
publicity,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, print publicity, yeah, it works for the acts for the aged, but it's irrelevant when it comes to youngsters
Mm-hmm.
who are active consumers. So, paying $2,500 a month for that PR company to, get you some print maybe and
Mm-hmm.
billboard or Rolling Stone,
Mm-hmm.
you might as well just take that money and light it on fire.
Yeah.
Even if you get in there, it's not going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to move the needle like it used to move the needle. It doesn't have the impact. It doesn't have the power because Rolling Stone's listenership or viewership is way down. The
Mm-hmm.
subscribership. Good Lord. Every day I'm hit up with like ridiculous 70% off your subscription, come back. Like, no,
Right.
they're not making, they're circling the drain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everything that moves the needle is online, right? Which is a huge cornucopia of information, right? Then again, Richmond, north of Richmond, breaks the paradigm. It is unique because it was grown by the public and agitated politicians who pushed the number.
Yep.
Because they hated it, more people loved it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, politicians and their news outlet penumbra have more power than terrestrial radio, traditional TV, or anything else. So it turns out organic is desirable. And if you're organic, you have a chance of being embraced by people who will promote you. But let's talk about organic. I think too many people attach organic to like what happened here with Richmond, north of Richmond. This
Yeah.
is lightning in a bottle. This is winning the mega Powerball for $1.5 billion, which just
Yeah.
happened, right? Like this is not a life goal. This is super, super lucky for a lot of reasons. Not to say that it's unworthy in any
Mm.
way, shape, or form, but I mean the way that this happened is huge. This cow is just on Joe Rogan, by the way.
Yeah.
Which you turned me on to, Brent. That he came there when you were here.
Mm-hmm.
But organic. The Beatles were organic. I'm going to change the phrase of organic when it comes to like how you kind of break out to be um, to be to say that organic is just a solid, fundamentally sound marketing strategy. Because organic doesn't mean zero marketing, which is really what happened with Richmond, north of Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a mistake to say that to equate what happened with Richmond, north of Richmond with organic. It's not organic. But if you don't have a solid promotional strategy in place and you get lucky and have some sort of virality,
Mm-hmm.
then you're going to blow it anyway,
Yeah.
right? So I'll give you an example. Like Big River or Black River Entertainment has Kelsey Ballerini. I think that's their
Yeah.
biggest artist on the label. The way that Kelsey Ballerini came to attention of the public was organic because Taylor Swift tweeted about her and then took her on tour.
Mm-hmm.
But if it, if Black River Entertainment didn't have the professionals and the team that they had who knew how to maximize the exposure and the outcome of that lucky organic wind in the sales, then Kelsey Ballerini is not the artist that she is today.
Right.
You know what I mean? That team had to do their job and had to be there in order to make that happen, or it's not going to do what it needs to do. So marketing, and with the Beatles, they weren't organic. The Stones, they weren't organic. They were, paying girls to go out and buy the records of
Mhm.
these artists so that they would chart. And then when they would chart, all of a sudden the terrestrial radio stations in England were like, oh, well, who are these guys? The Beatles, they're charting. People must like them. Well, let's give them a
Yeah.
spin. By the way, those were all cover songs, not for nothing.
Mhm.
But that's what gave them the sort of credibility to get on the radio, which got them the exposure that they needed back in the 60s, which made them the freaking Beatles and the Stones. But
Yeah.
it was calculated marketing. And the organic part of it was that the music was really good and the people that heard it really liked it.
Yeah.
That's the organic part, okay?
Mhm.
Do not confuse organic with lack of marketing. So Richmond, north of Richmond, is not try this or try that in a small town. Dig this. Jason Aldean came from Macon, and he didn't even write that song. And the
Right.
controversy superseded the track, which shot up and then fell online, which is the only place where you can make any money.
Mhm.
So while Aldean is number 10 on this week's media-based country chart, but Try That in a Small Town is number 32 on the Billboard streaming chart. All that terrestrial airplay, the label ain't making a dime. The publisher
Right.
is, and the writers are. God bless them. And maybe Aldean's image is being burnished, but when it comes down to money, Oliver Anthony trumps Aldean, period, because because Anthony's consumption figures are much higher. Can you
Mm.
believe I just read that? Can you freaking believe I just read that? This dude from Virginia who sang a song with really pretty poor quality with a guitar that wasn't even completely in tune in the woods,
Yeah.
making more money than Aldean is on a song for song basis. At this
Mhm.
moment in time, Jason Aldean's got more money than he does. But
Right.
I tell you what, right now, Oliver Anthony needs to make 10% of the gross that Jason Aldean has to make to blow Jason Aldean's personal income out of the water because
Yeah.
he gets it all,
That's the thing.
you know? Um, so, wow, mania might get you noticed, but it's the music that sustains you,
Mhm.
which is why Morgan Wallen continues to dominate the charts with no stunts employed. Wallen can be loved by everybody. It's conventional song structure with verses and choruses, the basic building blocks, which are rarely the key elements in the Spotify top 50. And if they're present,
Hmm.
the tracks are rarely believable, barely credible. So Bob Lessett says something is happening here. Don't forget, although distributed by a major label, Big Loud, which is Morgan Wallen's record label, is an independent.
Mhm.
Next time, will the independent do it themselves? Do they need to be distributed by a major?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you sell your soul to the company, man? That's what we've been told to do so for decades. Take the money, forget the audience perception, sell your songs. Better to have the cash than the control. Maybe that's all wrong, he says. Maybe radio is no longer all powerful. Maybe Oliver Anthony is a harbinger of what's to come. And then he says, but maybe not. One thing is for sure, terrestrial radio is circling the drain when it comes to breaking acts. It's never meant less. Maybe you want it to be a part of your marketing campaign, but if you're making it number one, you're missing the target.
Mhm.
Boom. End of blog. Wow. I think sobering is the word. I wish all record executives would
Yeah.
hear that, would read that, and understand that. But then again, there's nothing they can do, So
Yeah.
anyway, guys, it's all about the traffic. When you own the traffic, you rule the road. And you can read all about this on a free download that I have for you. Okay. Go to giftfromjohnny.com, JOHNNY, giftfromjohnny.com, and just tell me where to send it. It's free. It's a pretty stout PDF, by the way. And it breaks down more of what we're talking about here, like why we have a love affair with radio, why it worked, how it worked. And then we start talking about how digital works, why it works, and how it works. And it's all about how it's consumed, you know. I'm going to have a Wednesday win here, hopefully next week.
Yeah.
We talked about this with an artist that is just going to be a really, really, really big deal for my company. And this is, some of the stuff we were talking about with traffic, and just how it was consumed. This is not a broadcast device, even though the music industry thinks it is, because for them, for all intents and purposes, it's behaved like that. When Taylor Swift has 250 million followers on her Instagram and she tweets out something about Kelsey Ballerini becomes a star. That's the power that she has. But, like I was telling this artist that I'm hopefully going to be bragging about next week, I said, that's like huge influence. But when was the last time you got together with your besties and you guys all had a beer and you streamed your device to the big screen and you looked at your Instagram feed together? Right. And he howled. He's like, "Oh my God, hell no." I'm like,
right.
1-to-1 first.
Yeah.
1-to-1 first before you can have that influence. It's 1-to-1 first. And what do Taylor Swift's fans all believe? And why is she the biggest freaking artist on the planet? She is the first female, and I think only the second artist ever to reach 100 million monthly followers on Spotify. They believe she loves them.
Yeah.
They believe she cares, which is the complete opposite of the way radio works. I get a big hit song, you come to me, right? No. Now, she broke on radio, but she's young enough and smart enough to know how digital works, and it's a 1-to-1 relationship. So those are the secrets. That's what that PDF talks about, guys. It'll help get you asking the right questions, and then your subconscious will reward you with the right answers. So make sure you join the C.L.I.M.B community. Make sure you follow the podcast. Tell a friend about this podcast, please. Let's help as many people as we can, because this podcast exists because we want you to win. So keep on climbing.
And we'll see you at the top.